The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of Worldwide Digital Broadcasting Corporation.
Knowledge is power, and this is powerful stuff. Wellness Education Cannabis Advocates of Nevada present the We Can 702 Nevada Cannabis News Hour with the We Can radio team. For the next 60 minutes, we'll take an in-depth look at the cannabis reform revolution sweeping the nation. Now, let's fire up the news hour. Here is the We Can radio team.
Hey, welcome to the Cannabis News Hour. I'm your host, Mike McAuliffe. With me in the studio, as always, is my co-host and friend, Perry Hutchie. How you doing today, Perry?
No complaints. Life is good.
Life is good. I don't know. I'm not so sure about that if you look up at the Nevada legislature, but, you know, in general,
depends on how close you're paying attention.
Well, that's it. And I think you tapped on to why most Americans avoid the news like the plague. That way they don't have to be depressed about it.
No doubt.
However, we do have things happening in the legislature, and here we are only a few days from the wrap-up of the 2017 session of the Nevada legislature. So they're moving at a frenetic pace to get bills moving on, finished, and in front of the governor's desk before the session ends. And so we have something just from this morning. Chris Kudalis over at the Las Vegas Sun has an article about 8 marijuana bills which are awaiting their fate in the final days of legislature. And let's look at them a little bit here. What we have happening here is still viable, is Senate Bill 487, which is a bill that works with the 10% excise tax, and the governor has his own version where he wants all 10% to be going to education, whereas
so they're still fighting over what they're going to do with the money. Right,
they're fighting over what they're going to do with the money, and they have several different versions of it still happening. Everything that I see seems the governor's going to win on this one. He's going to get his version.
He wins a lot in the state legislature. He gets what he wants, and he's done well. And
yep. Well, in the governor's case, he wants it all to go to education. In Senate Bill 487, the sponsor, Senator Julia Ratti of Reno, wanted about half of that 10% tax to be distributed to counties and cities where recreational facilities are located, while the other half would be split up between state accounts for education, mental health, and substance abuse treatment.
Well, you see, I actually kind of like that version a little bit better, and the only reason why is because we have a lot of local municipalities and a lot of counties and things like that that will willingly forego the licensing of recreational or medical cannabis dispensaries, so they don't want it in their community, but they sure do want the money, the tax revenue that's from that. From those recreational cannabis sales. I don't think that's fair.
Although the interesting thing is, though, that if you look at the two population centers, which are Clark and Washoe County, those are the more democratic areas. So the areas that you're talking about that people don't want the dispensaries or retail outlets and aren't going to want to push this, those are all the cow counties, the rural Republican counties. So those would be the people that you would think would say, we don't want any part of that, and we don't want any of those sin taxes. We don't want any of that dirty money in our community.
But that's a bunch of nonsense. There's no such thing. You know, they just want they would love the cash. They just don't want the sin.
Yep. Yeah,
or perceived.
And this whole cash issue is potentially going to affect the governor's budget proposal if it doesn't come through in a timely manner. We'll get to that in just a bit. But also still viable, according to this article and according to the legislative website, is Senate Bill 344, which is Senator Pat Farley of Las Vegas. She's an independent, and Senator Tick Segerblom are the two sponsors of it. And what that bill would do is limit the amount of THC that is packaged into edibles into 400 milligrams per package of edible products. It would also ban packaging considered appealing to children, and that includes images of cartoon characters, mascots, action figures, fruit, or toys. This was also the bill, if I'm not mistaken, that was going to outlaw the production of candy. Because kids find candy irresistible. Forget that adults find candy irresistible too, mostly. But this one is still there. We'll see what happens with it by next week. We're going to know one way or the other because the session is over. I personally don't see a big benefit to the state for the public health of limiting a package to 400 milligrams of THC, because if somebody wants more than that, they'll just consume more than one package.
I recently spent a week in West Virginia and just got back the other day, and as I was sitting at the bars talking to the various bartenders and people within the community as they struggle with their inability to pass.
And they've got an opioid addiction.
Absolutely. And I'll kind of circle back to that later.
Please.
But they had a beer bill going through their legislature to where they wanted to have. They were limited to the types of craft beer that they're able to carry in West Virginia because of the alcohol content that's in some of these beers. If you can't have beer that's over like 12 or 14% over there, and where we in Nevada, we can have like these barley wines and things like that. And basically what the legislature was arguing is they're like, well, we don't want these people drinking these beers and getting too wasted, where you can go ahead and buy 190 proof grain alcohol, and that's no big deal. But really, it's what they don't understand is that these people who are going to pay $12, $13, $14 for these high-end craft beers are not going to be the people out there getting, they're not
going to be chugging them down at $14.
No, of course not. But it's just about breaking through to that educational level on these people, or getting through to them to be able to see past not their ignorance, but it's almost malicious at some point, because there's almost always a monetary back. What am I trying to say? Something in the background
there's
that's
a motive.
There's a motive,
sure.
For sure, and it's very disappointing because there's always someone lobbying to try to keep these things down. And I'm not exactly sure, like you said, what is, like, it's just like your question, like what's the public health benefit here by keeping these edibles out? What was the public health benefit by keeping these beers out? Usually really nothing. It's just people are willingly ignorant on the subject, I want to say.
Absolutely.
So
and the idea of not having candies or not allowing certain types of beers to be sold, it is usually framed in a protect the kids thing. I mean, when we were at these hearings and you have Senator Gustafson, Senator Robertson saying, think about the children, don't be greedy, and this and that.
If you want to think about the children, you just stop lying to them about the dangers of cannabis.
Well, that would be too easy.
Yeah, that's real, but it's just 400 milligrams is a lot of THC.
Sounds like it to me.
Like that's all I'm going to need in an edible for sure. But I'm also a libertarian. I'm not in the business of telling people what they can and can't do, how they're going to choose to medicate.
I just don't understand how, with the way the law is being structured for retail consumption, I don't understand how this is effective in its goal. And the idea that if you have an arbitrary limit, whatever it is, and okay, so there's your candy bar and that's all you can have. And if you decide you want more than that, and not even to eat in one time, but you're going to have a week's supply, and now you buy 10 candy bars, well, then that's 10 candy bars around that your underage person in the house can snoop out and find out, and maybe even think, well, mom or dad won't miss one if I just take one. They've got so many of them. Whereas if there were no limit and somebody just bought something that's large that they want, one would think they'd keep a little bit better eye or notice that some of it's gone. So I
never thought of that. That's an interesting way to think about it.
I don't think it'll even achieve its intended goal. And the very idea that you can't have cannabis-infused candy while allowing cannabis-infused cookies and brownies and various other things is just nonsensical and shows a fundamental willful ignorance on the part of these legislators. They're doing things for sound bites. So we saw Senator Roberson come out at that hearing and tell the activists that they were being greedy and thinking about greed instead of children. He's using this issue in the same way.
Just tired old narratives that we're just so sick of hearing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So still alive also in the legislature is Assembly Bill 259 by Assemblyman William McCurdy, who's a Democrat of Las Vegas. And this bill would allow those convicted of past marijuana-related crimes involving equal or lesser amount of what's now legal to have that crime vacated from their criminal records. And I support this wholeheartedly. Once you have a felony, and remember, up until 2001, Nevada was 2 seeds as a felony state, and so there are a lot of people who were convicted,
prosecuted,
or they were convicted way back in the day, before 2001, or since then, whose lives have been ruined by a felony conviction. I remember Jack Herrera, the noted activist, once said, "The worst thing about pot is what happens when you get caught with it." And so these people did not have their lives ruined by pot. They had their lives ruined
by
a government, that was being really vindictive and not looking out for the safety of the people. So we're gonna circle back to this one on another story that we're doing. But I think it's great, and that they will give people a chance to clear these nonviolent criminal records, and we'll see where it goes. Also, still alive is Assembly Bill 422, which is Democratic Assemblyman Nelson Araujo of Las Vegas. And what they do is they're aiming to incentivize medical marijuana card holders to keep their cards by cutting the cost of state applications in half, when they were already cut in half back in 2013. And so it would cut the costs to no more than $50 for an applicant, whether they're a first time or a renewal. So that's coming into a reasonable line. And the reason that the number had gone so high as it did back in 2004 was because there was no money coming into the Department of Agriculture for the medical marijuana program at that time, and the people running the program said, "Hey, we need some funds," and so the state put this in. But now the Division of Health has been making so much money from these MMEs getting licensed, they don't need to soak the patients who are already almost assuredly in some kind of financial distress, because the first thing that goes when you have a health issue is your financial security.
Absolutely.
So I think that this is a good step, and it can. There is a benefit to having a medical marijuana license, even in a state where it is legal, because you have 12 plants which you can grow as compared to 6 plants. You have your 2.5 ounces per 2 weeks as opposed to your 1 ounce at any time, which I like that. Because you can go in, you can smoke an ounce for breakfast, you can go to the dispensary, get another ounce, have it for lunch, go back in the afternoon, have one for dinner, and and hit a nightcap. So I just wonder how some of these things get figured out up in the halls of the legislature. So those bills are still alive. Now there are a couple of bills also that have been passed that are awaiting action by the governor. One of them is Senate Bill 374 by our friend Tick Siegelblom. And what this bill would do is add opioid addiction to the list of qualifying medical conditions that would allow Nevadans to obtain a medical marijuana card. And that
I'm
makes
all for
a lot
that.
of sense.
Yeah, I'm all for that, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
If you're giving people methadone for heroin addiction, we should definitely be able to give them an alternative treatment if they choose to seek that out.
Absolutely. And the thing is that the cannabis is a treatment that is certainly going to be non-toxic for anyone, and that it will allow them, in essence, to be the masters of their own recovery. A lot of people don't get help for opioid addictions because they're ashamed of it, and they don't want to admit that they have a problem. They don't want to share that and let the world know they have a problem. So with cannabis use to reduce opioid dependency, this is something that they can do without having to fill out a lot of paperwork necessarily, and without having to alert a lot of people that they don't want to alert. And one could say that then they wouldn't get a medical marijuana card based on an opioid addiction. Some will, and it just illustrates a good mindset for this. So I think that this is a great idea, and hopefully it's going to make it through.
Yeah, I'd like to see that pass.
Hopefully the governor is going to sign it, but I have something else that just came in just before we went on the air, and we'll get to that in a minute. Senate Bill 375 will allow the governor's office to negotiate with tribal governments within Nevada and for the use of sale of medical marijuana.
Funny, I didn't know that was illegal in the first place. It's funny we had to write a bill to allow a sovereign nation to do business with the state that their territory resides in. Well, it's not quite sovereign as you might think. Of course.
I
saw that during the Cannabis Cup. Yeah.
Yep. Most notably, to benefit from this would be the Las Vegas Paiute tribe and the Moapa Indians up a little further north of town. And the local Paiutes have already expressed an interest in developing a medical marijuana resort here on their property just up there in North Las Vegas. So if this bill does get through, then that will open up another stream of revenue for them. Also, on the governor's desk now is Senate Bill 396, which was sponsored by Senator Pat Spearman, Democrat of Las Vegas, and this bill was introduced in March to help regulate massage parlors that use medical marijuana topical products, creams and oils, massage oils, and would also allow research into industrial hemp. While existing law allows universities to grow industrial research hemp, Spearman's bill would allow plants with a low THC percentage to be more widely grown and researched. Also, let's see, Senator Spearman has another bill sitting on the governor's desk, which would allow medical marijuana facilities, both dispensaries, cultivation facilities, and testing labs, to apply and carry out apprenticeship programs for the training of the workforce. So beyond that, we have bills that have already been signed into law by the governor, and that's SB 277, which will allow the Division of Health to disclose information on medical marijuana patients to the Division of Parole and Probation if a cardholder or applicant is on parole. Now, previous laws had said that all patient information was to be held confidentially and could not get disseminated to anyone. The purpose of this bill is to have someone who is a patient and maybe on probation for something to continue to use their medical cannabis because they can prove to the probation department that they're a legal patient in the state. So hopefully the governor will sign that one into law. And the final one sitting on his desk right now is one that has had some controversy to it, and that's AB 135 out of the Assembly Committee from the Judiciary. And previously, we had this per se nanogram limit, and if you had more than 2 nanograms of an active metabolite or 5 nanograms of inactive metabolites, you were considered under the influence. Well, AB 135 takes away those limits and institutes a blood test. So if an officer thinks that someone is operating a motor vehicle under the influence, then they can request the blood draw. And while I don't care for the inconvenience of that, and why I think that this is a way that patients can get
but still,
jammed up sometimes.
How the hell is that going to determine intoxication? Still, that doesn't do shit for anyone.
Well,
so what they're doing is they're saying we don't have a per se limit, but we're still going to take your blood and measure the amount. Basically, how does that not determine a per se limit?
Because what they're doing is they're saying that activists argue that those limits were completely arbitrary and that the tests were unreliable. And so what the state is trying to do here is to find a test that is a more reliable indicator. And if you have active metabolites metabolites in your system, that means you've consumed within the past couple of hours. If you got inactive, that means it's been more than 4 hours, and nobody should get jammed up for inactive metabolites.
Okay.
So this is just
sounds good
a
on
more
paper.
accurate way for them to determine who just smoked before they got behind the wheel.
Right.
You know, and so
Okay.
that's where we're at. Let's see, what else do we have in here? Casualties. Oh, okay. Well, the biggest casualty on the list in this Sun article that I see is Senate Bill 236, which would have been they're calling it the marijuana lounge bill, and that's the bill that would have allowed for consumption lounges, permits for special use events like concerts and the like. Well, that's dead. It passed both through the Senate and the Assembly committees, but it died on the Assembly clerk's desk. It did not receive a full vote, and so I know that a lot of the MMEs and a lot of entrepreneurs here in Nevada were counting on this to come up and
profoundly disappointing.
Oh,
to see that go the way it did.
Absolutely,
because now the worst fear of the Resort Association and the patient advocates and everyone is coming to fruition. We are going to have recreational cannabis and nowhere for people to smoke it.
Right.
You will have cops being forced to enforce laws that are you're going to have people getting jammed up for doing a technically legal activity. You're going to have people catching fines for smoking in their hotel rooms. Yep. It's going to be a mess.
Yep, it will be a mess. But what I understand is that along with the county green ribbon panel that met several times earlier this year, you have the resort industry having an outsized influence on what's going on there, and they didn't want this in their hotels. They didn't want any.
It's already in your hotels.
Yeah.
That's like saying, we don't want prostitution in our hotel, so we're going to illegalize it. Well, I see the whores sitting in your bars every night. I don't understand what, have we learned nothing in Nevada? Are we not the pioneers of the gaming industry to be able to be a little bit smarter than that, to be able to look to not national history, but our own history as recent as the 50s to say, whatever. I mean... Yep. This is why I anyway.
So anyway, that's kind of where we're at with these bills, and I am sorry to see that 236 did not pass because as our friend Tick Sugarplum has said, you've made it legal. You've given the opportunity for people to possess it and not get arrested, but now you're not giving them anywhere where they can actually consume it, especially the tourists, because make no mistake about it, the people who opened up these businesses, all the MMEs around town, the people who are pushing these laws, they are not seeing the native Nevadan citizenry as being their biggest market. They're looking at a tourist market. We only have 3 million people in the state, but we have over 40 million a year come in just to McCarran here in Clark County. And so these businesses are all looking at having, having the lion's share of their sales going to out-of-state people once rec is fully on there, and we have these businesses permitted to sell these. So the idea that the voters said pot should not be illegal. We're going to make possession in this small amount absolutely legal. So now you're giving all these people who come into town, all these visitors, the ability to possess that. But what are they going to want to do with it if they possess it? Take it home as a souvenir? No, because actually the county is implementing another ordinance which is going to make it illegal to have cannabis at McCarran Airport.
Oh, come on.
So you've got all these people coming into town.
Where did you hear that?
It's one of the stories I've got here today.
Luckily state law supersedes county law, so they can fuck right off.
Well, anyway, so the thing is, all these people are coming in. You're giving them the opportunity to buy cannabis, but they can't take it home with them.
Of course
across
not.
State lines, and now you're not giving them any place to smoke it. They can't smoke it in their hotel.
Well, as a result,
rooms.
they're just going to smoke it everywhere.
Parks.
They're not
They
gonna,
can't smoke,
you act like you can't smoke it in the parks. They're going to smoke it at the parks. You can't smoke it at the hotel. They're going to smoke it at the hotels. I mean,
and so you will have a situation where you have people getting fined or arrested for consumption of something that the people of the state have said it's perfectly legal for them to have.
Not my problem. Have fun with that, boys.
It's crazy. So what else is going on here? in the state of Nevada. That's our
Big one.
Oh, okay.
This is really the big one.
Well, the court. Okay, so there's another story that
yesterday a story came out from the Review Journal that said supposedly Nevada's July 1st rollout of recreational marijuana sales could be in jeopardy after a district court judge signed a temporary restraining order. A judge on Tuesday signed the order prohibiting the Department of Taxation from enforcing a May 31st license application deadline for the state's recently approved Early Start program for the recreational marijuana sales. The Independent Alcohol Distributors of Nevada filed a complaint arguing that the November voted approved ballot measure that legalized cannabis in Nevada gives liquor wholesalers exclusive rights to marijuana distribution licenses for the first 18 months of sales within that state. Yeah, well, we already knew that. That's nothing new. The statute gives a priority to exclusive license to alcohol distributors in order to promote the goal of regulating marijuana similar to alcohol, the judge ruled.
And it does. And what happened? And we've had Joe Bresney on the show, and we've talked to a lot of these people.
Yeah.
They put this little codicil into the measure that they wanted to get passed, the initiative, because they didn't want to have the alcohol industry come out against them, as it did in California in 2014, where it was beer and wine delivery driver unions that were helping to fund the no on their legalization campaign. And of course, it did not succeed in 2014 in California. And so they were looking at doing the same thing here. And the people behind Question 2 said, well, we'll cut the legs out from under that by making them the exclusive distributors. But the problem is that none of them have really had a big interest in doing this.
None of them care.
Later in the article, there's a tax department spokesman, Stephanie Klapstein. He said that only one licensed alcohol wholesaler had applied for a marijuana distribution license, and that application came in Wednesday morning of last week.
Literally at the 11th hour.
Yeah, and so these people are saying, oh, well, you can't distribute cannabis because we are entitled to do that. We, the alcohol industry, are entitled to do that. But nobody from the alcohol industry expressed the slightest bit of interest or made an application of this until after they put this complaint into the court.
Well, the entire distribution scheme that we've had in Nevada surrounding alcohol since forever has been ridiculous. It drives up the cost of alcohol in this country, in this state, by having an unnecessary step. Have you ever seen that movie Office Space?
No, I don't think I have.
Do you remember? Okay, there's a scene where there's this analyst that comes in and he's trying to figure out who really belongs in the company and who doesn't. And there's this guy whose job it is to connect the clients with the company. And he really does nothing, but he's just been there forever. And he's just like so enraged by them questioning his worthiness of having a job in the company, when really he's a useless person. He's like, don't you understand how important I am to have, and this and that, but really, don't you know? And this is the whole argument, is that, well, you need us because you need us. You need distributors just because you need distributors. But we don't need distributors. We don't need that extra step. Why can't the clients just go to the grow facilities and buy the cannabis? Why does there have to be this third intermediary step with this, it's nonsense. It's just all nonsense. There is no reason for it. They put it in there as an arbitrary thing to have an additional revenue generation, or just the people who supposedly wanted it, the alcohol distributors, now could give a shit less. So I say, just do away with the whole thing. It's like this guy from Essence Cannabis was saying, there is no reason for requiring a third-party distributor for marijuana. It simply baffles him. He cites the same arguments the tax department initially made, that he doesn't understand why alcohol distributors would risk losing their federal license, and logistically, he said the move doesn't add up.
And that's from Armin Yemedigian, the CEO of Essence Cannabis Corporation. So this
nonsense.
is kind of it absolutely is. But so because of this, this whole
push and pull.
Yeah, this whole push and pull, the early implementation, a July 1st issue, is now in question.
I heard it was a Cow County District Court that made the ruling. Also,
I
don't know if that's true or not. They didn't cite it in the article, but that's rumor around the campfire.
Also, that we have here okay, and this came in really late. So we've already talked about this other story about Senate Bill 374. Well, now we just come in that the Governor Sandoval has vetoed the bill, which would allow adding opioid addiction as a medical condition, medically qualifying condition for cannabis, and he also vetoed the bill which would allow the use of marijuana-infused massage oils. And this bothers me more than most things that he will have done, because in the last session I was up testifying for several committees when they were getting tough on opioids and creating a board to watch over doctors.
I remember that when Sandoval's wife pushed that bill through.
Yes, Kitty Sandoval, who is not elected by anyone in the state of Nevada, but just happened to be married to the governor, had a bully platform to push an anti-opioid policy. And with 47,000 deaths a year in this country from opioid abuse, yes,
no one admits it's not a problem.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a problem. But the answers that the state and the governor's wife wanted to force down our throats were not really solving the problem at all. If doctors were writing too many opioid prescriptions, those people come under the watchful eye of the DEA, and at least half a dozen of them have been arrested and federally prosecuted in the half dozen years or so. Yeah, there's already a law for that. We don't need to add even more for that. But the idea that the governor and his lovely wife and the people who back them are so concerned about opioid addiction and the dangers that heroin and Norco and Vicodin and Percodan and all these other things pose towards the populace. They don't want to allow cannabis in as a harm reduction measure. You've already got it legal. So the thing is, these patients, they'll be able to go out to the store and they'll just be able to get it anyway. Right? And so what is being accomplished by the governor saying, oh no, we don't want to take people who are trying to get off of opioids and give them cannabis?
Well, I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist or kind of use the crystal ball, but I think Sandoval's gunning for a Supreme Court nomination. I think he's trying to cozy up to the new administration and especially the new Justice Department to kind of build up his conservative credentials a little bit while kind of towing that line with his constituents here in Nevada. Because he's basically a Democrat with his policies. The way he's the best Democrat governor we've ever had, as far as I can tell. With the way his taxes and all this kind of crap, he sucks. But he'll go whichever way the wind blows, and this is really how it's going. I just think he's kind of hedging his bets,
and he's looking
with
for
the hopes.
Supreme Court
well, it's a lifetime job. It's a great gig, and I can't blame him for trying to gun for it. But
and it shows how odd this country has become, because it came out a little earlier this year that Justice Anthony Kennedy, who is one of the 9 Supreme Court justices in this country, had sort of announced that he was going to be retiring at the end of this term in June, and that he was going to, he'd be done with the court, which will then, of course, give the new administration the opportunity to fill another seat. Now, Justice Kennedy is often considered a swing vote, but he's a conservative judge. And now, all of a sudden, you have Democrats and liberals who are saying to Justice Kennedy, please don't resign.
We don't know who they're going to
because we don't know
who replace him with. Yeah,
the president is going to replace him with. And so it just shows that the country is really in such an odd place where you've got the liberal wing of the country asking a conservative judge to stay on, somebody who they
values change over time. An enemy of my enemy is my friend, or however you want to perceive it.
Well, that's what seems to be happening. So hey, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back in just a minute with more news.
My name is Janine Evans, and I am the office manager at Getting Legal, and we help people get their medical marijuana cards. Anyone can be approved for a medical marijuana card as long as they have a pre-existing medical condition. The medical conditions recognized in Nevada include severe pain, severe nausea, muscle spasms, seizures, glaucoma, cancer, HIV or AIDS, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Our staff helps every patient determine before they come in for a visit whether or not they will qualify. We take care of the whole process of getting a medical marijuana card from the state of Nevada from start to finish. Our services include paperwork processing, a physician's visit, notary services. All of our patients pick up their approval letters right here in our office. We make it fast, simple, and easy. During your consultation, we will discuss different products available at the dispensaries, such as edibles, lotions, and concentrates. We will also discuss different ways to medicate, such as smoking or vaporizing. You will receive a separate identification card identifying you as a medical marijuana patient. This is used to enter the dispensaries and only to enter the dispensaries. Every veteran receives a discount off of the full price of their card. We also offer discounts to anyone working within the medical marijuana industry. All you need to do is call 702-979-9999 and a member of our friendly staff will help you schedule an appointment.
And we're back with the second half of the Nevada Cannabis News Hour.
Like you said. Okay, so let's turn our attention a little bit to Washington. And, you know, we were just talking about, you know, what strange times we're living in and how the liberals are asking conservative justice to stay on. Well, in the same way, I was perusing the Federal Register, and in the United States Senate, there's a bill, S-1276, which is a bill that will require the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, to make a determination as to whether cannabidiol, or CBD, should be a controlled substance and listed in a schedule under the Controlled Substances Act, and to expand research on the potential medical benefits of cannabidiol and other marijuana components. And what just grabbed me about this is the sponsors. Now, they've got 4 original sponsors, you know, Senate, 100 people in it. That's not a lot necessarily. But it's just the people that they had on this. The original sponsor is Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, who, although she is a Democrat, I would not consider her to be in the liberal wing of the Democratic Party. She has proven to be very conservative on any number of issues. Nonetheless, she is a Democrat. But the co-sponsors of this are what got me to bring this to your attention here. Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican of Iowa, chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, one of the most conservative senators in the United States Senate. Senator Tom Tillis, Republican of North Carolina, another very conservative guy. Senator Joni Ernst, who is a Tea Party darling who got elected in the 2014 wave. And this is a woman who is, absolutely hardline, super conservative, all the way down the line. And the 4th co-sponsor is Senator Richard Durbin of Illinois, and Dick Durbin is a Democrat, and he has been forward-thinking on these issues for years. But what's got me here is you have such a diverse group here of these original sponsors, with 2 Democrats, 3 Republicans,
all shapes and sizes
across the ideological spectrum, and they're all saying, hey, wait a minute, let's take a look at CBD. Does it really need to be a Schedule I substance? And I'm sure this came out as a reaction to the DEA listing CBD as Schedule I last December.
And what troubles me the most about this isn't that these people are looking at it. I think this is fantastic. They're kind of, like when we were talking off camera, I kind of expressed concern because I didn't fully understand what was going on. But it's good for them to question the DEA's authority on this. But my question now is...
Or the DEA's judgment as well.
No doubt. You have to give these government entities that you create certain ability to manage themselves. But it seems like the DEA has such carte blanche authority to issue and create public policy that affects tens of millions of Americans, hundreds of millions potentially, that maybe we should look at regulating their power a little bit to just go ahead and just call something Schedule I all on their own. Shouldn't we have a discussion about that before we start potentially creating laws that are, or not laws, but policies that are de facto federal laws that have the potential to not only put people out of business and create criminals out of taxpayers, but take people's freedom away, which is, in theory, like the most important thing about being an American. You know, more valuable than life itself is freedom.
Yep. Yep.
Or so I was told.
Yep. Give me liberty or give me death.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm looking at, man. It's just like we want to start eroding that authority eventually, and maybe this is the first step to that by questioning that.
Well, I just think that
idea.
Since we have now 35, I think it is, or 36 states, which now
Is it
have
that many?
CBD
Jesus.
laws. They're not all. There's something on the order of 29 medical cannabis states, but about 35 with CBD laws. There is such wide support for CBD across the country that the DEA's action seemed callous and arbitrary last year. And so I think this is probably a result of that. And it shows that such a diverse group of political thinkers can come together on an issue like this, then maybe the DEA did overstep its bounds a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. This is something that may rein them in ever so slightly. So we were talking a little bit earlier about Senate Bill 374, I think it was, that or that will allow the state of Nevada to negotiate with the Native American tribes to allow them to be selling, growing and selling on their tribal lands. Well, in the on a KTVN, Channel 2 News, and I don't really know where KTVN is. I'm going to guess they're upstate around Reno.
Okay.
They had an interview with the top FBI official in the state of Nevada, and he says that, and Agent Rouse says that the cooperation between civilians and the FBI is needed to curb opioid abuse. And he's saying that in 2015, 619 people died of opioid overdoses in Nevada, comparing with that to 329 who died in car crashes.
Oh, wow.
And many of the overdoses were a result of prescription pills like OxyContin. And we have gone to a state where a state of being where the actual heroin deaths are smaller than the prescription opioid deaths. And it's the big pharma that has been pushing the opioids and pushing them, and cannabis is so much safer a solution. But what got me in this article was, and I'll read it here. It says the legalization of recreational marijuana in Nevada means big changes for the state, but Rouse says it doesn't change anything for the FBI. It is required to enforce federal laws, including those regarding marijuana, and 86% of Nevada is federal land. And he says that Agent Rouse, that is, says if you're on federal land, if you happen to be on tribal reservation or happen to be on a federal reservation, marijuana is illegal, it is remaining illegal, and the U.S. Attorney's Office will prosecute. So we told you just in the last segment that the governor is planning on signing a bill which will allow the native tribes, the indigenous peoples, to take part in this cannabis revolution and the economic revolution that's happening there. But now the FBI is saying, you try that and we're going to come in and bust you. It's just...
It's good to see them focusing on those serious crimes
serious crimes.
Meanwhile,
we can't let those Native Americans grow a little pot.
I'm going to use a little bit of a rhetoric from the election here. When our new state attorney general was
Adam Laxalt, yes,
being brought in and things like that, he kind of made a stink about the or no, it was the local lady, something here in Clark County, some lady who's in charge of the district attorney's office, I believe, was accused of not using her authority to prosecute the rape cases that were the old rape kits that were sitting in storage.
Oh, yeah.
And so the FBI is like, we're going to come crack down on the dope and the dopers. It's like, well, to the best of my knowledge, there are still over 3,000 untested rape kits. Some of them go back to 1985 I was born in 1985. Wow. You're talking people have been waiting for justice for these serious crimes for over 30 years. And meanwhile, the federal government chooses to allocate its resources for this trivial shit.
C'est la vie. So, so that was the FBI guy here in Nevada. Now, the Drug Enforcement Administration's acting chief, a fellow by the name Chuck Rosenberg, reiterated an Obama-era stance Thursday that marijuana is not medicine.
I saw that little blurb. He was really adamant about it too. He had his fist on the table and all looked right at the wanted to make a meme out of himself or something.
He was speaking at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio, and that's a
well-respected brain institute. They have one here in Nevada, I believe, right here in Las Vegas, downtown.
Clinic. And old Chucky here says, if it turns out that there's something in smoked marijuana that helps people, that's awesome. I will be the last person to stand in the way of that.
I can tell.
Yeah. But let's run it through the Food and Drug Administration process, and let's stick to the science on it.
Okay, then allow us to run it through the Food and Drug Administration's process, and let's see what comes up.
Right. Meanwhile, the DEA for decades has been turning down every single application that any researcher in the country has made to study cannabis. And, our
oh my God,
friend Sue Sisley had these problems.
I would love this guy to be able to get it through the, to have these big pharma go at it. That's when I was in 2013, and it turned out that Kaiser Permanente were the ones that were trying to kill the bill. The only thing that came through my mind was, with the power that these companies have and the resources, and if they are really in the money-making business and they know that this medicine will actually help to get people well and it's something that they could profit off of, why the hell would they try to shut us down so hard? Why not just buy us out and get into the business themselves? I don't get, and still to this day, I've never understood that.
Because they already have so much money and revenue tied into their existing stream that they're worried that this could upset that apple cart. And the U.S. pharmaceutical industry is huge.
Oh, for sure. And it just seems like instead of competition, it seems like an additional revenue stream for them to take a hold of for themselves, considering, there's this big dance of, should it be regulated, should it be recreational, should it be medical? Well, let's just steal the whole damn thing. Yeah. But I don't know.
Well, what really burns me here is the hypocrisy of this guy saying that, I'll be the last person to stand in the way of it if it helps. That's such bullshit, because the DEA and every administrator the DEA has been hardline. They haven't wanted to open the door even a crack to allow a ray of sunshine in on medical research for this. So this is crazy. It says here that despite repeated attempts by advocates requesting that marijuana be moved to Schedule 2, I don't know. We advocates say it should be descheduled, but Schedule 2 isn't much better. But the DEA has pointed to the FDA's guidance that says it does not have medical value. It's insane. Okay. Now, at this same presentation at the Cleveland Clinic, former Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, who was speaking alongside of Rosenberg at the event, said the country should be researching medical marijuana. He said, Surgeon General Murthy said, should we be reducing the administrative and other barriers to researching that in the government? 100%. But 100%. What we should not do, is make policies based on guesswork. When we do that, what we do is put people at risk. He also appeared to show some concern around state laws regarding recreational marijuana, saying that it is addictive, which can be harmful to a developing brain that is vulnerable to developing substance abuse and addiction.
Okay,
and I got to stop him right here.
We're not advocating that children smoke pot. No one's advocating that children smoke pot. He's superimposing that, since we're advocating for the legalization of cannabis, that we're advocating for that children have access to this. That is insane.
But you've got people, and we promote them to positions of authority and give them high and mighty titles, like this Surgeon General of the United States, former Surgeon General, and he comes to this professional setting and he lies. Let me repeat that to Vivek Murthy, former Attorney General. You lie, sir. You say that marijuana is addictive. I'll tell you what. Rather than the U.S. government that I used to trust, I'll trust the National Geographic, who did articles and studies on this a few years ago, and said that cannabis is less addictive than caffeine.
Gambling's addictive.
Yeah, there are so
Crazy
many things
addictive.
that are out there. Cannabis could be habit forming, but addictive,
Hell,
no way. And
I know
when someone
people
like this tells
I know
a
people-
mistruth, it hurts us all.
I have people who I know in my age who spent a disproportionate amount of their income, some would say an addictive amount of their income, on shoes. They collect Jordans or whatever, you know what I mean? I have seen people get obsessive about
Chocolate.
I've seen people get obsessive about baseball cards when I was younger was popular, and kids would spend all their money on that. How the hell are we going to regulate people's addictions by this? And I understand that there's not intoxicating or things like that, but I've seen destructive behavior come in all forms. It just seems strange to focus in on this one thing. I feel like you had the saying a long time ago. You said government doesn't seem to mind people killing themselves as long as they aren't stoned.
Yeah.
Because they have no problem with people smoking cigarettes or doing this or whatever. And another one of your famous lines is, we're regulating pot, not plutonium here.
Yeah.
And that seems to get lost in translation with some people.
It really does. All right, hey, we're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
And we're back with the final segment of the Nevada Cannabis News Hour.
And we are. Now, we have a story coming from the Associated Press. California's legal pot law helps to reduce and erase convictions. And it gives a story of a fellow named Jay Shulak, who was convicted for peddling pot about a quarter century ago. And it obviously prevented him from landing jobs, gave his wife doubts about even tying the knot with him. And it just, has impacted him severely for something he did as a kid 25 years ago, nonviolent. And so the article continues. So when an opportunity arose to reduce his record to a misdemeanor under California's voter-approved law that legalized recreational marijuana last year, Shulak wasted little time in getting to court. Why should I be lumped in with, murderers and rapists and people who really deserve to get a felony? This lesser-known provision of Prop 64 allows some convicts to wipe their rap sheets clean and offers hope for people with past convictions who are seeking work and loans. And the story goes on.
Can't even get a loan.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't get a loan. Can't get federal student loans, anything like that. And so this is something we really need to have in Nevada. It's not happening this legislative session, but it's certainly a direction that we should move in the next session, because if the people who have largely decided that cannabis prohibition is a bad thing, they've spoken on this, well, then we should take all those people who were convicted under these and wipe that slate clean with them. Nearby in Utah, they will have another medical marijuana ballot going next year. They're trying to get this initiative on. The backers of the initiative are going to ask voters to approve the whole plant cannabis when it goes before voters next year. He said not to smoke, but to pill form, edibles, topicals, extracts, things like that. And it's similar to a bill which ran a couple of years ago in the legislature, which failed to get any traction. So we're going to keep an eye on what's happening in Utah there.
We'll keep our fingers crossed for that
it's
one.
It's a good direction to go to. And I'll tell you what, there's just so much going on. We're going to run out of time for it. Let me get to another one real quick. We have an Ohio Supreme Court justice who is considering a run for governor in that state, Justice William O'Neill. He is the lone Democrat in Ohio holding a statewide office, and he's considering giving up his state Supreme Court seat to run for the governorship. And why is this of interest to us? Well, in a speech with his analysis of last year's presidential election, he said he not only wants to legalize marijuana, but also wants to release all nonviolent marijuana offenders from prison. He said the time has come for new thinking. We regulate and tax alcohol and tobacco and imprison people for smoking grass. Hey, Justice William O'Neill for president. Let's impeach the Trump administration, and let's go with this guy. Hats off to you. All right, well, that's about all the time we have, and there's still so much news out there.
As
stay
always.
active, stay informed, and you know that Weekend is going to continue to fight for you. We're going to have our parties through the year. So stick with us. We'll see you next time.